Secret space programs are real. Black ops are real. Billions, no, I changed that. Trillions of dollars around the world have been spent and wasted behind the scenes by the Muppets in the military and the governments and the hidden hand that runs the planet. Don't believe me? I don't care because I know it's true. And somebody who's witnessed everything and been taken prisoner in these situations, in these secret space programs, is my brother from another mother. That is Tony Rodrigues. Welcome, my love. How are you?
Hi, Danny. Great intro. Wow, rock'em sock'em. Thanks for having me back. And
Always.
we did a nice roundtable the other day with all the G6 speakers for the UK event this year, 2026 in September.
I
What an
know.
impressive lineup. It's like I'm fans of a lot of people in there. And
Oh
so
my
very
God.
impressive lineup. I'm stoked. I,
Yeah.
I feel the pressure. I got to keep
Ah,
keep
are
up. The
you,
bar is set pretty high.
my love, you've spoken at every single Galactic Spiritual Informers event I've ever had in my life. Yeah, in America and England, darling. You are like the top one. But
Yeah, I don't know about
it's
that,
so
but
exciting to have David Icke and Billy Carson and Kathy O'Brien and Max Lowen, who's blowing the whistle on the Vatican, and Nikki Allen for the spiritual aspect, and Praveen Mohan for the ancient temples. Guys, if you're new to my channel, go look at the website. It is the greatest whistleblowing event in the world. It's in England, September 10th, 11th, and 12th. And Tony Rodrigues will be there too. So thank you for saying that. And it's a pleasure and honor and a joy to have you. You're one of the single most honest people in the disclosure arena that I've ever met in my entire life. I come to you for the SSP. I come to you for the private programs, the child torture programs that you were in, that you found evidence for. But let me not get too far ahead. Let me hand over to you because you said the secret space programs, pretty much the reputation, testimonies are in tatters right now. What do you mean, Tony
they're
Rodrigues?
completely in ruins. It's been turned into many times. It's been turned into a laughing stock. So there are fragmented testimonies that are coming out, and the really quality ones that we had in the very beginning, like in 2012, 2000, early on, 2015, those early testimonies got corroborated, and there was a lot of work to vet people that came forward, and that just disappeared at some point. And a lot of the people have behaved badly since then. So people with credible evidence haven't walked the walk. And so now we're seeing people with not non-credible evidence saturate what's left over, and we're seeing all these other blends of testimony just kind of blend in, and so we've lost sight of the secret space program in general. So people are they've made it a humorous thing, and we know this we from the very first Galactic Spiritual Informers, it was kind of under attack before you even had one. The first 6 months before it was under attack. People showed up, and the next year it was like big attacks resisting the information that we've had all along. Many people have come forward. There's a lot of, and I'm not bad mouthing it because there's a lot of great testimony out there. There's a lot of great evidence. I'm this weird anomaly. I feel like a weird anomaly that is still going.
Well,
So
you,
I
it,
wanted to prove it, and so I dug up evidence, and people don't even want to prove their stuff anymore.
yeah, which is really sad because they should. They have a duty. And I'm sorry to all of those who genuinely went through a secret space program, went through torture, went through absolute physical, mental, everything you can imagine and not imagine. Were just lost so much of their lives, were put in programs for 20 years and then, put back using technology. It's such a shame. People should have the pride to want to prove. I mean, over the years, I think Chris O'Connor, his testimony in Saturn is very credible. And obviously, he spoke at my first conference as well. Your testimony is very credible. Your information on being on Mars. What do you think about, we'll go back to Mars, but what do you think about, oh, we're flying around the moon? I'm like, I'm so embarrassed. What are you doing, you Muppets, on April Fool's Day? Because the dark hand, the whatever you want to call them, the shitheads that run our planet, they're like, haha, April Fool's Day. They still think that we are all asleep. I mean, I can't believe how dim-witted they are. They really think they're winning, do they still? Like, what is going on with that?
Well, I think April 1st was the new year. It used to be the new year.
Well,
And that's
it,
why they called it April Fools, was when they changed it. They changed the new year
oh,
to
yeah.
January 1st. Um, no, I'm happy they're going. I'm stoked for all the little kids. Look, I was a little kid when the last Apollo mission, the very last guy that stood on the moon in 72, I was only a few months old. So March, April, was it April? I forget when that Apollo, but I was just a little kid. So it spanned my entire lifetime since they've had an effort, a public effort. That's what everybody says. Oh, we're going to the moon. No, publicly, we're going to the moon. There's a big difference.
Exactly.
Publicly, they go to the moon.
Because
Privately, they go there
all the
daily. There's
time.
flights, just like catching a flight to Florida. So,
Exactly.
privately, there's a great infrastructure on the back of the moon and inside of it. Um, but they're publicly going, and what they're doing is teeing up the next steps, the next phases. So they'll go fly around the moon and test their life support systems and everything, and then they're going to go back. The time frame is ridiculous. And the money spent is ridiculous with what they're doing to think that it has ballooned to the cost it is when we have whatever. I don't want to get into that, but they're checking off boxes. I said this before. I said it in a reel I made months ago. They have to check off boxes to disclosure to let us know things. The same time they launched up to the moon, it was postponed right when the war broke out in the Middle East with the U.S. And that seems to have taken a turn and they see the light at the end of the tunnel for all that is, and then they launch to the moon. Um, but they're going, then they had aliens.gov they created. The White House took out URLs for aliens.gov right before they launched.
Hmm.
So I think it's going to be an excuse at some point. They're going to go to the moon and they're going to have contact out there rather than have motherships land over the White House or the Kremlin or somewhere. I think they're going to have contact out there and then they can sell us. They're going to give us a bunch of peck of lies. Let's call
Oh,
it what it
that's all
is.
they know how to do, deceive humanity.
They're gonna
Yeah,
they're gonna put a lot of lipstick on what they are, what's really been happening.
right,
Yeah. So
right. So, okay, so
honestly go ahead.
let me ask you this. So, I didn't bother wasting my time watching NASA and the flight because it's just it makes me too crazy because I know it's such a farce and such an effing lie and an insult to my brothers and my sisters and a crime against humanity for people like you that were taken to the moon when you were 10 years old on a TR-3B when you were in that torture program and you were taken up to the base on the moon and they injected shit in you, they operated on you and other children, and the American military funded that. That's why I get so crazy and so angry at the liars out there. I can barely contain my rage. Whoo! Anyway,
I
and so I didn't waste my time watching it. But I heard they were going to go around the backside of the moon. So did they show the military base there, or did they use cloaking technology as they flew over some moon rocks?
They
Do
won't see it.
share.
The astronauts won't see it. So they have technology that like holograph technology that hides all that stuff if they want.
Yeah.
They can flick a switch and the base disappears. Um, Look, I was just saying the other day that you you can see it coming. We're going to disclose. I've been saying this for years, but you can see it coming. They're dragging their feet. It might be enough more years before it happens. It might be this year. Who knows? Um, I kind of wish that my testimony wasn't so damning for what happened. I really do. I really wish that I had good news that I wasn't treated so bad when they took me and treated me like a piece of equipment and
Mm.
gave me the trauma-based mind control stuff that I witnessed, what I witnessed in Seattle, what I went through in Inyo um, Peru, all of that, and in space, and the Ceres colony, the corporations that are up there, how they get on with people, and how they, that it's completely militarized, and there's not a lot of human rights for many people that are there. Some people live great up there, some others don't. Others live like soldiers or military personnel that they have basically don't have any kind of rights over their body, autonomy. I wish my testimony didn't have such a bad light. At the end of the day, my last few years up there weren't super bad. Um, but we're going to get a disclosure, and I also feel like when they do come out with a pack of lies that I might be inconvenient. that my testimony might be inconvenient for them in a disclosure scenario. But I'm
No,
unpacking a lot of it and moved
mm.
on from it.
I think, Tony, that it was unfortunately, it's one of the most compelling and horrifying abuses of crimes against children and mind control that has been basically peppered throughout every single system. And our friend Kathy O'Brien used as a sex slave in the White House and the Pentagon. So these
Oh yeah,
stories have to be there so we can expose the monstrous monsters that have been doing this and getting away with it. The satanic occult. You briefly skipped over Seattle. That's where you were put in a cage, and then when the elites at this house you were forced to live in, that you were kidnapped to, you'd have a collar on, and then people would come in and choose a boy and do whatever they wanted to the boy or to the girl. These are horrific things that are still happening. The children
yeah,
are still suffering. We have to keep talking about it. We have to keep shoving it in people's faces that have the ability to hear and those who are also healing. They can't have gone through all of these horrors for nothing. And we need you. We need your testimony. It's so crucial, Tony. So, it's a shame there are others. I mean, we were talking about infiltrators for the last hour, just privately, you and me are catching up. It's such a shame because one of the only people that I used to support for his testimony was a positive secret space program to a point testimony. But then he's come and he's trashed so many good people. Or he trashed the flyover event, wasted money on making a video. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you try and prevent disclosure? There were over 1,000 people that saw spacecraft and military craft come over our event in 2024 in Westminster, Colorado. These people now nobody listens to. Nobody cares. Done, they're done. They're done. Like Anunnaki, I couldn't give a shit about the Anunnaki. I got the right ass with them. I think they're distractors. I think they're mimics. I think they're dangerous. So anyone comes near me with an Anunnaki, they're going to get a boot up the arse. We don't need it. Who cares about the ancient gods? What about here? What about now? Boots on the ground, taking care of business, shoulder to shoulder for humanity. If you want the Princess Anunnaki stories and all that, go then. Just go. Go play, go fantasize. We're here to do a job. And I think we've been looking over the time that those who are seriously here for their brothers and their sisters are standing on the front line. And those that are here for the fame and the Dolly Bird nonsense and the stories, they're elsewhere. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
quite a few. I think that when I look at there's quite a bit of actually fighting over deep history events that we really don't have a lot of documentation or a lot of evidence for anyway. And I look at that and I go, well, that's fine. It's great to understand, if you don't know history, you're going to repeat it. But the deep history, I never even really bothered with because I'm looking at what do I do now with what I know now? Like how do we get ahead knowing what we know? And to fight over what happened 100,000 years ago. To fight over it. It's one thing to research it and discuss it, but to fight over it is a straw man argument. It's a straw man in a field that you're fighting with, and it's just wasting. It just so dissipates your efforts. Like, what do we do now? Where are we at now? And what I've done since, I've always tried to prove my testimony, and I've dug up a lot of proof. The submarine ships that was corroborated. Peru, there was a lot of proof there. There still is.
Mm,
Series, I called things out. The Seattle was there, and Inyokern. There was a lot about Inyokern. So what I'm saying, if I could prove those points, then the rest of the points hold water. And but what do you do with that? What do we do with that? And do I sit around and just keep belly aching about how bad I got treated, and one day and just kind of poor me, right? So like roll over and say that all this bad stuff happened to me, but I witnessed all this stuff and poor me. And in the beginning, maybe it came out. I just thought that I was going to do a couple interview here and there and then go back to work.
yeah.
And it turned into something else. But what it also has turned into is many other people seeing the information and getting their memories back and then discussing it. And I like to let go of the victim. And people ask me, Tony, how can you behave after you had, like, how are you not devastated? And I'm like, well, I was. In my 20s and 30s, I was a mess. I was a total wreck. I was very angry. I was violent. I was off. I was unhinged, and I was the same thing that everybody else goes through when they're greatly abused. That. But at some point, you got to let it go, and you got to make what you got to make some lemonade with the lemons. And anyhow, recently, a lot of people are not doing that. So we have these other people, like you said, that you touched on, that falsified evidence to try to trash. And so it takes away from the work we've done. We've done a lot of good work to let people know that these things are real. We all banded together and supported each other and said, look, that I agree, that was real, and that
Mm.
was real. And now there's this squabbling, but it's not for a purpose that's noble whatsoever to fight over this. We're doing a job and we're trying to prove to people that don't know that they don't need a rocket that takes 4 days to get to the moon. Or, like that's what we're trying to do. That's the whole
Yeah.
job. And it doesn't mean anything about how we're getting along here. So I want to move on from that, and I want to say that because of that, what we're working on and the GSIC, the new speakers that you have, and the way that everybody's kind of splintered off and doing their own thing, there's always a silver lining, and there's been a lot of progress since you started GSIC years ago. When was it?
Yeah.
22 was the first one?
20, well, no, I basically created it in 2021, and then we had our
Mhm.
first in 2022. I
Yeah.
remember we gave
So,
Alex Collier a Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah, it's just been so beautiful. One or two a year, every year since then. Yeah.
yeah. Well, since you've done that, it's really progressed a lot of the things because so many people have come together around it and networked. Because some conferences, are you go and it's just a party atmosphere. It's the younger people, it's people that are into alternative information. There's a lot of the spiritual community that comes to these conferences, and it's a relaxed party atmosphere. And you network with them, and they're doing great things. But yours is kind of a more of a professional atmosphere, or people that are, like you attract a different crowd. And because of that, we were able to network. And the networking with people that are open-minded, that are aware of the same stuff, has really progressed a lot of things since 2022. And so that's what I'm thrilled about, going there and meeting everybody. It's always fun to meet the other speakers. But I've been working on my stuff. The Scion.com is going really well, and I've unlocked even more things that work well. And so I've been able to turn that into something tangible from the technology that I remember experiencing. Maple Street Learning is still coming. It's been 3 years I've been working on it. It's not an easy task, especially for a normal guy like me, but it's coming along, and we're close to having something viable that I can present.
Can I
And
stop you there? Because it's so
yeah,
important. People that know you, they'll know what scion.com is. But people that don't know you will have no idea, and they won't know what Maple Street Learning and Maple Street Learning is a company you developed after you were on planet Mars in a base watching military personnel come in and plug into software and learning
yeah.
upgrade. And you brought that back to this planet and you've been developing it. That is mind blowing. And also, I'm so glad you're healed, like Kathy O'Brien is healed. You've healed that trauma. Now look at what you did with it. This is the big difference with you. This is why you're so important. You traverse the military, the dark black operations and programs, secret space programs, the satanic occult. It is all together. And you've been through all of those systems. You're one of the most important people on the planet for disclosure right now. And I'm telling you straight, and you better accept it and hear it and take it on board.
Thank you, Danny. You always say that to me. It's hard to think the shoes fit, but
Get
thank you
over
for
it and
that.
accept it. Just get over it.
Okay, I accept it. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm him,
You're
right?
him.
Um, I got to tell you that the roller coaster of talking about it and having kind of this, being known, people coming up to me at the conference talking to me. There's a fame there, but I wasn't really after that, and I'm still not chasing it. I think some people get addicted to it and are chasing it.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, there's other things to do. I want to say that from the time that I went to Inyokern, so the first program that I was in when I was taken, for people that don't know that are watching, you said you got new people. I went to school with a kid who said his dad was Illuminati. We didn't get along, and I got abducted like pretty much the next day after I met his dad by ETs, and lived for 20 years in these program to program, and then was put back the next day. It's called a 20 and back, affectionately called. Um, Woke up with no memory, and then in 2015 got an MRI scan and got all my memories back. 20 years of memories, living in places in the world that I'd never even knew about, living in space, all that. And I studied about trying to prove it and discovered that the places I remembered that I didn't even know existed were there exactly how I remember it, that the people are there exactly how I remember it, and went to these places. When I went to Inyokern, I found a lot, and I uncovered that the first place I was remote viewing and psychoenergetics. Um, was a program, a research program in 82, April of 82 till January of 83. Since then, I teach remote viewing, which is a blast. It really is. There's good people that have come through, and it is a blast, and it's impressive every single week. They just blow me away. The remote viewing stuff has advanced. So since I've been teaching it, I've been able to take data that I've learned. So not only what I knew, that I remembered, that was still classified from the program. So using influencing, out of body stuff, dream influencing, like you name it, they were doing psychoenergetics. The stuff I remember from the program I was doing, and then with typical CRV, we were blending. But now that I've had years of data, I've really uncovered a lot of really good, useful things in the remote viewing, and I will touch on it a little bit. But we're starting to really monetize it in ways that are fair for everybody, for all the viewers, and for everybody else. I'm working on something to monetize, and it's very powerful. It's a superpower. We all do it. Danny, you popped in there for a minute, and you did remote viewing in my group, my Sunday group.
I know I was
Everybody can
shocked.
do it.
I was so shocked. I was so bang on. I got everything, and I really shocked I mean, I know I've got abilities. I mean, I've had them since I was born. That's why I do the work I do today, and that's why I bring people forward to help and promote them because this is the trueness of the human. We're so amazing as individuals. But I didn't want to be a distraction either. Do you know what I mean? In the group. So, but I'm going to come back, Tony, because it's just so much fun. It's so
It is
much
fun.
fun.
It is fun, but since then I've discovered some really powerful things. We start looking into time, and the physics behind it have driven the research into other areas. So that's the other thing is, I'm kind of I always describe this that when it comes to remote viewing and consciousness and the physics behind it, I'm not a professor that does the math. Thankfully, I can use AI for that. I don't have that. But I'm a researcher just the same. And because I don't have the educated background, I sit there and put 1,000 algebra equations on a chalkboard. I don't need to. It's just like the ancients. They could see the birds fly. They knew things could fly. They didn't know how they flew. But you could see it happen. In remote viewing, I can see the same thing. I can see that these people experience this and they get this data. And so so if we change a variable, then I can see that consciousness works in that way. So I don't need to be a laser physicist for this, and I've had enough experience at it. We've really come a long way. And it's translated into some of the other technologies. So the Scion.com is audio that has many different layers that I'm using for people, if you're grieving or, everybody wants the money. Make me one that makes me earn money, right? But that stuff is translated and it's consciousness technology. It's the way that people behave in your state of mind. And I've learned it through the remote viewing research that I've done. The other thing is we can really, really, man, this is a tall claim, but we can very accurately tell the near future with remote viewing. Um, I don't really want to, I was thinking about doing it on stage, but then I thought, what if I'm wrong? So you get into the high 80th, 90th percentile, you still that 10%, you get it wrong in front of people. But I might mess with some of that, maybe a workshop or something. We can talk about that later. I'd
Yeah,
be happy to do something like that, and we could do a demonstration. I don't
that
know
would
if
be
I'll do it on
so fun.
stage live. I did remote view on stage in front of 200 people at a conference once, and it was the scariest thing ever. I pulled it off, but it was terrifying, and I thought, I'll never do that. I got gray hairs over that.
Oh my
But I've
God.
discovered we can really accurately foresee things
Mm.
in the future. And I'm reorganizing in a couple weeks the entire remote viewing group. The structure of my Patreon is getting completely reworked over that. and I'm going to have a group that has access to those predictions. So
Mm,
it's progressed a long way, and I'm very proud. I'm very excited about it and how it's worked. So I've got three really good irons in the fire between Maple Street, Scion, and the remote viewing. And this year, in the last year since we did the last one in the UK, they've really progressed. They all three have progressed, and I'm very proud of that work
mm. Yeah,
based on what I saw in space.
it's so interesting. I remember one time, a year or two ago now, somebody was connected with somebody upstairs, and when they were telling me about it, I got an image of him and what he was wearing, and he was wearing white basically, and he had a lot of green around him, and he was on a bed, on some kind of a bed. And the person I said that to, she goes, "Oh my God, you saw him! You saw him!" Apparently, the craft is cloaked and all that. But no, I saw it, I called it, I saw it. So a lot of us are, really, it's easy. People forget it's energy to energy. It's not that difficult. We think we got this, this meat suit, whatever, this vessel, but we're energy to energy. So, but if we abuse that, there will be a comeuppance because there are laws of the universe. I mean, I don't believe in the prime directive. I think that's a great one. Oh, let's just put the prime directive in there and, oh, yes, we blame that. You know what I mean? I'm so pulling everything apart now, and speaking for myself and thinking for myself and saying whatever I like because it's too important not to, in my opinion. And something else that's really, really important to say is some of the other work you've done, what we're going to discuss now, a lot of people are going to have a hard time with, and that's all right. Sometimes we have to hear things that someone's been through, and, recognize that things are happening on planet and off planet in different areas. People ask about cloning. People ask about removing the consciousness from one body and putting it into another. And Tony Rodrigues has actually gone through that experience, but not quite in the way you would imagine. So, what he's going to do now is give you a rundown on his book, Project Star Maker, what that was, who makes the stars. And often, guys, we get disappointed when we recognize that the stars are really close. The moon is really close. Sometimes you might walk out in the garden and go, I feel like I could touch them. Surely they're not that high up. Maybe not. Tony, regale us, please, on Project Star Maker.
Star Maker was what I left out of Series Colony Cavalier. They were very vague, incomplete memories. It was a collection of things that kind of all kind of fit together, had a tapestry that connected them all. And I talked about my editor, Jackie Pierce. Her name's Jackie Kenner now, and she started a beautiful family. And I love them, Neil and Moss, her kids. But anyhow, she's my editor, and she was a psychic medium. And we were doing sessions talking about the book. And she said, "Well, how did you know that?" And I said, "Well, because of Peru." And what she wasn't telling me, what it was the same thing that she got in sessions with people doing psychic medium work. So talking to the dead or dead relatives of people that she did professionally, she says, they're telling me the same exact thing that you're saying here, and you were in a different circle. I was being drugged and put into near death um, in Peru. I was flying from Porto to now it's called Boca, Colorado. They renamed the city and whatever. Long story. I was flying from there to Colombia with shipments of cocaine. I was being drugged, and this was after the psychoenergetics training. So this was a government agency that was doing this, and I was a canary in a coal mine. I would tell them if the police were there, how the weather was, if they were running late. It was psychic. They were drugging me, and I'd lose consciousness, and I would wake up and not remember anything. But after 4 to 6 months of it, I started to remember what was happening on the other side. And I was getting past life memories, and seeing things. And maybe that's how I got my memories back in the first place. I don't know. But I remembered being taken from series and being sold again after the fact. So you lose, and when you're dead, the future, and the past don't stay in the same order. It's emotionally connected. That's one of the remote viewing things that I've realized about consciousness. And when we look at, I just wanted to touch on the side note. When we look at the abuse that I went through, they justified it because they thought I was just a clone. It's like they don't understand how consciousness works, that your memories are not just local in your, they stay with you forever through all your lifetime of memory state. It has to be non-local. It has to be. We have too many other instances of people that have access to memories that are not theirs. I mean, we get people with transplants and they begin to remember those person's lives. We get people that have near death experiences and they can remember other things that are clearly non local. It's not just in our brain. And so that's the problem. They're justifying cloning with torturing people as if they're not going to remember it. So that's how these elites are justifying it. And so it's it's coming from a place of complete ignorance on how consciousness works. Their consciousness is non-local. I wanted to say this. When we talk about remote viewing, there is a brainwave state that must leave time space. So it must happen this way. We can see the future, we can see the past, and we can see distance far away. So your consciousness has access outside of time space. It must do that. What we've done with other dream work, which is advanced remote viewing techniques while you're sleeping and doing lucid in the hypnagogic state and in lucid states, what I've postulated is that there's a brain wave that's always connected outside of time space. And when you go to sleep at night and get into that theta, those REM sleep in that theta, your regular brainwave that's loud just shuts off and you become aware of the dream, the abstract dreaming state. Basically, what I'm saying is that 24/7, you are always dreaming. You are still there in that dream state all the time. It's only at night when the rest of you shuts off completely and you're rested and oxygenated that you become aware of that state of mind. But we are all dreaming. We are all in that fabric, that realm of reality that is outside of time space all the time anyway. And that's where the psychic abilities come from. That's where the remote viewing comes from. And it's, described that's where the memories of Project Star Maker happen. So to go back to the book, I remembered being taken and my consciousness being sold off to a and put into out of they can take your consciousness, the signature of it or whatever, however it works, and put the basis of it into another body. And being sold off for labor and working for an organization deep in space, building a star. So this is a large corporation that spans galaxies, that builds worlds, rings, celestial bodies, and eventually stars. They even can build stars, and that's hence the name Project Starmaker. I did I answer your question? Wow.
Yeah, beautifully, because that is not easy, and it was very concise and very well layered. Thank you for doing that. It's quite extraordinary for anyone to imagine the level of sick, cruel, vile, non-human, soulless, um, you know, like all our global leaders that have real power, to take the beautiful consciousness, the most precious thing we have, the soul consciousness, and take that and use that. And the shocking thing is the way that obviously you described that you built a star. And when you were doing that, you weren't in a human form. Your consciousness, as your energy frequency, was inside another kind of body. Can you describe that to us, please?
Yeah, it was a less complex humanoid form. So I was already so like a telescope. When you unpack a telescope, it gets smaller, bigger and bigger, or smaller and smaller, however you want to look at it. I was We'll start at the beginning. I was 10 years old. They took my consciousness. Their exact words were going to borrow your consciousness, put it into, and I'm postulating a clone body, and then live for 20 years. And at the end of it, put me back in time or just killed me and my consciousness returned. So time dilation. And to the original body, which I lost the local memories of the 20 years, but my memories of my first 10 years were waiting. And then they put me back. They cut me loose. And I woke up the next day like nothing happened, but strangely changed emotionally. And so that's the 20-year thing. During the 20 years when I was in space, the Ceres colony made a deal with an ET species to sell off their slave labor guys, their consciousness. But it's less, you dissipate because my original body, so it's like a telescope. It's like I have a graphic of triangles that, like the timeline. I made a graph of the timeline. How it works. It's very confusing to most people when you talk about time or being put back in time or living and you get the 1,000-yard stare pretty quick from the normal person and I rightly so. because it's very far away from anything that we've ever taught is possible or in the realm of possibility. But we're talking about extraterrestrials that are probably millions of years ahead of us technologically. So I was taken for 20 years, and then in that 20 years, taken for another 10 years into a watered down body that needed less consciousness. So I had the emotionality and the mindset of an adolescent, like a child. So I didn't really, each time your consciousness gets watered down a little bit. And so taken and used to drive mass and go through the chemical makeup of a nebula and push things in towards a gravity well until it finally ignited into a star.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that? Two things. Number one, what did this physical body that was created for you, that your
Oh,
consciousness went into, look like? What was it made of? What did you look like? And how did you make a star?
it was brown and we didn't have parts like we do.
You didn't have
So
a willy.
no. And it was like a gray eyes, but brown, like a brown, but a gray. Yeah, thanks for that, Jamie. Um, but it ate
Oh
very
dear.
simple food, and I had a little like an apartment, but it was an adolescent. So the beings that were there were the same species, but they were allowed to grow up. Like we did, I didn't age while I was there. I was the equivalent of like a 13-year-old. And so it was genetically built. It was a genetically cloned body that was built to stay at the same age and not really and only live for a few years. And so it was genetically made to run on less consciousness. So it was made to do that. And brown, kind of flat lips, a mouth like no teeth, one blade like or a couple blades, and I ate. The room provided me with food. The bed made itself. The clothes washed themselves. I put them in a drawer. It was like everything was automated where I was, and we had ships that we got in, small craft that we would go out into a nebula, into a very dark. So you couldn't see any stars. It was a very dark nebula, gaseous, but we could see on the like a radar and push large pieces of like asteroids or chemicals. We could scan for chemicals, and they layered in certain chemicals at a time. And then we'd switch to another chemical, and they layered in. They were building a star, the chemical makeup of a star by doing that. There were thousands of us doing it, and large ships would show up on radar and drop off raw materials that we would push into it. So they were doing it on a chemical by the chemical makeup in layers until it finally exploded into a star.
And it's just so incredible. It is so mind-bending to even imagine and conceive of the idea that you physically lived. And so you're saying that we're in this craft, you're creating the chemical composition, the molecular structure, the stone. I mean, when I read that in your book, Project Star Maker, the images that come to mind, they're so visceral because it's you, it's the way you talk, it's the way you write. And I could feel at times when Jackie's energy was in that book too, because you worked on that together. And she's very feminine in her energy. Amazing reader. I had a reading with her once, excellent reader. Um, so where did they get the rocks from? And what kind of rocks were they?
They were all over the place. There were big ones. It was a lot. It was a giant nebula. It was in a star forming region that they were accelerating the process. So it was a place that in 50 million years or a billion years, a star might naturally form anyway. And they were hurrying the process. So most of the material was there. But like I said, there were absolutely, so I could see the area, but like with computer graphics, like a radar. I was aware, I plugged into it and you could see it. And I could see where the other guys like me were, in their ships miles away. And you would see these massive objects just appear. And they were ships. They were like freighters, and they would drop off material off way in the distance, and then we would go there the following day. We would go there and push that. We literally just pushed the material and got it started towards the center of the gravity well. We'd let it go, and then go back and get another one, and that's what we were doing. And other ships would come, they would appear, and I never saw one up close. I only saw them on radar, and they were absolutely massive. They were these massive ships, or excuse me, a massive radar blip that would just appear one day, and they would stay for days, weeks, and then disappear. And there'd be another one come, and we'd go and push that stuff in, and then we'd go back to the field where we had natural asteroids, and we would grab them. Like I said, there was a very strict order on how they layered everything in there. They had it. It was very um, planned out. Everything was planned. There was a very strict recipe on what they were doing. And every morning we just got told what to do. It was pretty mindless. And you think about it, you look at the analogy nowadays is that we have the pro kids that play video games for professionally. They make millions of dollars. The best ones are young. The best ones are 17, and they only can do it for so long. Only a few, like we have pro athletes. An NBA player stays in the league 10, 15 years, and they're on the elite level. The video game athletes, the esports athletes, are only good for 3, 4 years, and they're done. So
Yeah.
it's a level of reflexes that it takes when you're talking about manipulating when you're talking about into the milliseconds, not just a layup. And so that seemed to be what they were doing is they created an adolescent with those reflexes and put a consciousness in there and then rinse and repeat. And that was and then I was told that they brought us in to bring the project was way behind schedule, and so they brought us in. That's why they solicited the Ceres colony for consciousness to do it. Like they made a trade, they were paying for it, and so I was a commodity. And when I was in space in the program, wow,
Mm.
Danny, this got deep fast.
If
I
it,
don't talk about Star Maker because it's pretty out there. It's pretty woo.
but we're ready. It's
Try to
not
keep it
woo.
all real.
It's not woo. If anybody needs an understanding plainly from somebody who's lived this on how a matrix is made, it's like, hello, it's go time. This is creating the friggin' matrix. This is how it's done. It's done by other people and beings off planet. That's what's happening, and it's all been hijacked. And these awful, awful beings, people, are using and abusing my brothers and my sisters. And we're going to tell the stories. We're going to tell the tales. We're going to bring it to humanity. That's what we've all been doing for years, especially with my conferences. It's like enough now. We don't hold back one thing. We tell it all. We name the names. We give it all. It's our duty, and again, it's so hard to find, really good people that stay good because obviously some just go off the beam with the huge egos and then nobody believes them anymore. No one, their work becomes trash because of how they treat people but you're one of the kindest, most loving, most decent, you've done your healing. It's incredible. And you're one of the most respected people in the field of disclosure. It's really that simple. I know you can't handle being complicated like that, and as we know, I don't care. But it's important, and we've led people in, gently, and then a few punches in the face, which is always what you get on my channel, because sometimes we need a little bit of a wake up, shake people awake. But because there's no more time to pussyfoot and ballerina around. It's like it's go time. Because when we're equipped with the information, that's when we can start our healing as well. And that's when we can really know and open up what we have been born into, all of us. All of us. And at this stage, the war is on the ground. We need boots on the ground so we can take down the system that's been owning us, and it's possible, and you're a proponent of that. You are a living, breathing survivor of that. I mean, it's incredible what you've witnessed, isn't it? Well, what would you say would be one of the most extraordinary that you've lived, you've outlived it, but you look back and you think, you know what? That may have not been good to start with, but actually, I got something from it that you could apply here on this planet.
All of it. So I've been asked many times, would you do it again if you had a choice? And I'd say, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't change my life for what I am. I'm happy where I'm at right now. So it made me who I am. Who knows if I would have been a total D-bag if I didn't go through if I didn't suffer the way I did. Not that I recommend it, right? Not or
No,
giving it a pass.
of course
I want
not.
to say this about a lot of the other people in disclosure speaking. I'm talking to you guys. Um, most of the people that are on stage are badly damaged. If you were driving down the road and a ship comes down and ET steps out, it's trauma. We're talking about a life-changing trauma right then and there. So people that are in the disclosure community that have witnessed these terrible things and went through a great deal of trauma. I mean, come on, like we talk about Max Lowen. You mentioned Kathy O'Brien. Their stories are of great trauma. And so I'm not throwing shade at them, but what I'm saying is these are people that are going on stage, and then to go from being treated like less than a human to being treated like the toast of the town, like to be on stage and be cheered on, it really is a rubber band on the limits of your ego. Do you know what I mean? Like it really is difficult. And so we see not everybody behaves the same after a few years of it. And some people crave it, like, one day I won't talk about it. I won't be on stage anymore, right? I'll just move on with my life and do my thing. And will I miss it? Will I crave it? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, every human being, I think, wants the human next to them to tell them they're awesome. Well, every 100% of every human being wants the nearest person, not even mom or dad or brother, my spouse, the person that's next to me, even if it's a complete stranger. I want them to like me. I think that's the basic human need. You want to be liked. And so people get addicted if whatever their life is, and we see their behavior just not want to let go when it's threatened. And with that, I think that, and the reason I'm saying this is because we can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We can't let the behavior let go of the truth that they told us about the world we live in. Because we live in a world that's nothing like what we think it is. We live in a universe that has people out there building stars and zipping around. Like there are giant ships, there are people that live for thousands of years. There are beings that don't look like us, that are smart and have a sense of humor like us. There's a lot going on out there. There's food, music, friends, and travel and beauty like we've never seen. Looking from the bridge, looking out the window of a spaceship in deep space is breathtaking, like looking at the ocean for the first time. And we are we are supposed to see that. Our level of consciousness is supposed to experience that. And so yeah, so I mean, the behavior is one thing for everybody. There's a lot of people out there, and I'll touch on this one last thing that's my favorite is that the CIA and the DIA have agents among us in these conferences that are so full of shit, disinformation, and and they're thick. They're all over the place, and they're disinformation people, and that's why I've dialed back my conferences this year. I was doing 10 and 12 a year, and I'm going to do a couple. So I'm stick with you, Danny, and I'm going to dial it back. I'm not because a lot of them, my life was in peril.
Mm.
I've I've lost years of my life out there on the road. So,
Oh,
um,
darling.
but it is what it is. We're literally telling people the greatest secret of all time, the greatest truth of all time is that
Yeah,
what's up there.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. And just to recap, we've got David Icke, we've got Kathy O'Brien, Tony Rodrigues, Max Lowen, JP, Danny Henderson, that's me, Billy Carson, Guy Anderson, Praveen Mohan, Nikki Allen. There's 10 of us on the great stage, September 10th, 11th, and 12th. Get your ticket today. Get your ticket, guys. We've already sold several hundred. It's a massive theatre. Get your ticket now at the lowest price. There's four different prices, the lowest price, and then get your flights and your hotel rooms later. There are thousands and thousands of hotel rooms, of Airbnbs all across Eastbourne, right a short walk to the theatre. I mean, it was so great, wasn't it? It was so great last
it's a
May.
beautiful spot. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
town. I
Mm.
loved it there. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, no, it's so fabulous. I love it too. I love it. I love it. Well, we've covered a lot, obviously, and I know to some people this is going to be brand new information that they've never ever heard, Tony, ever, ever, and they'll have to process like we've all had to as well.
Look, to those people, I just want to say, I know it sounds like a tall tale. You want to say I'm crazy. That's cool. It'd be weird if you didn't. But I've spent a lot of time and I've come up with a lot of evidence and I've been corroborated by researchers. There's a lot. There's a reel that from a Gaia show and everybody I just get land it's got like 17 million views. It's Gaia, not me. And I just get roasted in the comments.
Oh,
And they go, "Man, this guy, what about proof?" And I wrote back. I like to write back every now and then to pop it because people don't expect it. And I said, "How do you think I got on the show?" I said, this guy's so full of crap. He's so, where's the proof? And I wrote back, I said, how do you think I got on this show? Do you think they just pulled me off the street and I just made up some wild story? I was researched for years by researchers and Chris, and there were things I said that I shouldn't have known that nobody knows. There's things I said over and over again that nobody knows. And so much that I've heard of people that have been plots to kill me because of things that I said. So I've heard that from several different sources that I let out a little bit too much. And so I know it's hard to believe. It's hard for me to believe it, but I'm telling you guys what I remember. That's it. So
Yeah, bless your heart. There's so many beautiful people out there with extraordinary stories. I mean, just, everywhere of every realm, like our friend Karina Pataki, who's coming back on my channel soon. She's going to retell her experience of escaping Romania again. Romania, and having the wolf dogs sniff her head. I mean, they would rip children and adults apart if they tried to escape. They were starved. These wolf dogs were starved, and yet she was protected, this little beautiful baby girl. I mean, it's extraordinary. And people go, oh, that's not possible. It is. It happened and it's real. It's like me sitting in the courtroom on March the 9th in Amsterdam. Amsterdam, with nine of Bill Gates' lawyers defending his ass, and Albert Bourla from the CEO from Pfizer, and Mark Rutte, who was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and one lawyer, and I'm sitting behind him reporting as a journalist in the front room. That happened, but you get numbnuts coming in going, that's not true. That would have been on the news. Really, honey? Really? You trust the
yeah,
news, do you still? Oh, bless you, because nobody wants to be wrong either. And I get that. I get that. We get to the information as and when it comes to us. We might drop in, drop out, pop around the corner a bit, but ultimately we're all going to get there because we're getting there. It's happening. We are at war. It is a multi-dimensional spiritual war, a war for our souls, a war for truth, a war for everything else. And we win the end. We win, but it's a bit bloody bumpy right now, Tony Rodrigues, isn't it?
it has been. And but like I said, the bottom line is I've witnessed personal progress. I've seen progress with everybody else. Like it's moving, it's progressing.
Yeah.
So that's the best you can hope for is the wheel to turn, and it is.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, my darling. Well, tell us how we can get hold of you, where you're next appearing, and anything else.
Where am I? Over there. TonyRodrigues.com is the website. Needs a facelift. It's been a long time. But you can get my books there. You can click to my Patreon. I teach remote viewing on Sundays. It's awesome. Um, Scion.com is going to launch a full rebrand like next week, and there's a lot of really great products. I'm going to present on it and how it works at GSIC. I'm very excited about it, and it's come a long way. And then Maple Street's still in the works. I'll present on how that's going. It'll be a while till that gets polished and fully marketable. But TonyRodrigues.com, and then I'm on Facebook and the socials. You can message me. People always do. So
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And ladies, he is taken, just so we're clear there. He is taken. Oh my goodness. And it's Tony Rodrigues with an S, and it is pronounced Rodrigues. I still get corrected. People still jump in. How could you not know? It's Rodriguez. I'm like, no, he told me it's Rodrigues.
it's
It's
Rodrigues.
Rodrigues.
Yep, with the S, the Portuguese version. It's true. And I
Exactly.
don't argue with people. I've been called worse than Rodriguez.
I know. I know. Brilliant. TonyRodrigues.com. Talks with Tony. These are your handles out there. And we love
Mhm.
you. We adore you. We're so grateful for you. Always the most humble speaker out there and bringer of information and one of the most important voices in disclosure. It is as simple
Thanks,
as
Danny.
that. Thank you, my love. And to you, beautiful audience, I know it's a bit of a roller coaster, this particular broadcast, but it is important to bring all the information. It is important to bring you reference points, people who've actually lived the most extraordinary experiences, because the people that put someone like Tony through this, they always banked on the fact that none of us would believe them. They failed there. They also banked on the fact that Tony would never remember. They failed there too. A lot of failure. It's happening. The MK Ultra doesn't work. And the LSD that they tried to use for MK Ultra, complete and utter failure. So it's good. It's all coming out. It's already out. Come join us at our conference, 10th, 11th, and 12th of September. GISIC, Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection. We call it GISIC for short. In England, beautiful England. Come. And don't listen to all the stories about all of the Muslims taking over the entire world. It's not true. It's not true. Speak to people that live in Eastbourne. Speak to people that live around Gatwick Airport and Heathrow Airport. Don't listen to the propaganda and don't be put off living your life. Live your lives. It's your life. All right. Sending my love to all of you, especially you, Tony Rodrigues, my darling.
Thanks, Danny. Love you.
See you
See you
soon.
guys.